Kia ora, everybody. Welcome to Point of View podcast. My name is Tom Augustine. Thank you so much for being with me today. This is the monthly podcast where we talk about what's coming up in cinemas and on streaming across Aotearoa. Today, we are talking to the really cool team behind Went Up the Hill, the New Zealand film, bit of a gothic kind of ghost story, starring Dacre Montgomery and Vicky Creeps, directed by Samuel van Grinsven. We got the chance to chat to Samuel van Grinsven and Dacre Montgomery when they were here for Whānau Marama International Film Festival, so stick around for that. Today we're welcoming Dacre Montgomery and Samuel van Grinsven. Their really wonderful film, Went Up the Hill, is premiering tonight at New Zealand International Film Festival. It is also coming out in New Zealand cinemas on October 9th, I believe. Is that correct?
Yes.
Correct, yes. Thank you so much for chatting with me today.
Thank you.
We're really excited to be chatting with you. Thanks for taking the time.
How does it feel to be bringing this film home, I guess, bringing it to New Zealand? I guess you won't know until tonight, but how does it feel right now? Are the nerves high?
I felt okay, to be honest. We world premiered at Toronto just at the end of last year. So we got we got a few festivals under our belt now, so I feel a little more used to it. The first time's always the hardest, but no, tonight will be really special because it's our first time playing the film in New Zealand, and a lot of our crew and heads of department haven't had a chance to see it yet or haven't seen it in the theater yet. So that's the thing I'm looking forward to the most, is being able to share it with a lot of the people who really helped it come together.
And it's a really special film. It has a very New Zealand feel, but it's also something quite new in New Zealand cinema, I think, in a certain sense. I'm interested where the idea what was the germination of the idea? Where did it originally come from?
Yeah, so I've had the same experience on each of my films so far, where I'll be in the edit for the previous film, and then an image kind of comes into my head. Usually, I feel like every film is a response to the film you've just made in a lot of ways, whether that's creatively or in a story or theme sense. And I was in the edit for my first film, Sequin in a Blue Room, and an image was in my head of two people standing either side of a coffin, both of them equally grieving for the person inside, but knowing nothing about one another. And I sort of let that brew over a few months, and eventually touched on this idea of a nursery rhyme, Jack and Jill Went Up the Hill. And I found that really interesting, especially knowing I want to make this in New Zealand, that there's something quite gothic about a nursery rhyme. There's something both scary and soft, this sense of the maternal, but also a cautionary warning. And all of that culminated into what eventually came out through my co-writer Jory and I, as Went Up the Hill.
And Dacre, this is such a interesting, layered, complex role. What initially kind of drew you to this film?
Well, definitely the fact that it's a three-hander told by two performers was definitely the most interesting initial aspect before I read the script or seen Samuel's creative vision. Obviously, the two of us play the same third character together. I've never heard of that in cinema before. In theater, definitely, but not in cinema. So that was what initially drew me, for sure. And then upon seeing Samuel's creative vision for the film and then reading the film, I was like, it's incredibly unique in every way, shape, and form. And I'd like nothing more than to be a part of it. And I think that's reflected obviously in the finished product. It's so special. And to your point before, Tom, you said, add something new maybe to the cinematic history of New Zealand. And I think that's so true. The landscapes, everything, and Samuel grew up in Christchurch. So I think as well, obviously, how familiar he is with the landscapes plays such a crucial part in the location in Flock Hill Estate. You said you spent a long time looking for the location. So there's so many factors that just every element of this film, there's so much care and time taken.
Yeah, well, I mean, one of the things that really stands out about the film, I think, is that obviously it's an incredibly beautiful film, but it's the beauty of Queenstown, or that kind of area where you shot. It's not sort of that kind of cliched scenic kind of vibe that you might get to the way that area is usually depicted. It's still very beautiful, but it has this kind of, as you say, gothic, haunted kind of feel. So was that kind of your idea from the get-go? Was that how you wanted to kind of depict that area?
Yeah, so I really based a lot of like what version, whenever you sort of know what you're shooting, you're asking yourself like what version of that do I want to show? There's a million ways to bring New Zealand landscape or New Zealand as a country to the screen, as has a lot of directors have done. So I really asked myself like what is it I'm trying to do, and what version of that landscape am I trying to bring to the screen? And for me, a lot of like my foundational memories of this part of New Zealand, which is Canterbury High Country, is driving through there with my family in the kind of the back of like a tour bus. So a lot of those memories are like wide-eyed, full of wonderment, very childlike uh, images and memories of that landscape and how dwarfing it feels, but how fantastical it feels. And that really connected with the nursery rhyme. So I wanted these two characters that Vicky and Dacre play in the film to, in a lot of ways, feel like children. Almost in a nursery rhyme, to feel very dwarfed by the landscape, to feel incredibly isolated. And that all brought itself out. And I've always just found that tussocks kind of environment that you find in this part of New Zealand just so distinctly unique to New Zealand. It feels like home to me. So that really informed the color palette, this use of browns and that kind of like volcanic rock. And we brought that all inside into the interior design, into the costume, and really locked the color palette down to what is essentially, as close as you can get to black and white without shooting in black and white.
Absolutely, and it is also an interesting. It's a ghost story. When trying to describe it to other people, I talk about it. It's not necessarily a horror, but it's still it feels like a ghost story or a possession story. Um, what what is your relation, both of you, to the spiritual world? Are you the type of people who believe in ghosts?
I think, and not to be, hopefully a dick in answering the question, I think that there's a version of this movie that's not supernatural at all. That's the movie that I entertain in terms of the process, in terms of approaching both the characters of Jack and Elizabeth, of ghosts live inside all of us, right? If it's a ghost of an abuser or whatever it might be. And that's really what the film is to me. And in terms of my process with Jack, it was like, what if Dacre, was to play both the abused and the abuser at the same time? And how is that the ghost? Do you know what I mean? So if that's what you mean by ghosts and believing in ghosts from a psychological standpoint, 100%. Our ghosts live in all of us. Our parents live in all of us. And it's trying to find the relationship with that to try and heal and get over it. Supernaturally, I'm kind of agnostic with anything and everything in life. I'm kind of open to whatever anyone's. I don't know. I'm agnostic, I think I'd say. But from my sister's studying psych, my mom's a psychologist, and my grandfather's a psych. So certainly from a psychological background, from my family, I definitely believe that ghosts haunt all of us. They just aren't necessarily supernatural. They're psychological.
Mm. And Samuel, what was your kind of relation to? Was there some consideration of genre in the ghost story, bringing that to the film?
Yeah. Yeah, I think like I come from when I was at film school, my sort of thesis that you have to do, to do the academic part, not just the filmmaking part of film school. I did mine on the new queer cinema movement. So that's, filmmakers like Derek Jarman and Gus Van Sant and Greg Araki and Todd Haynes, and something that really came out of that movement, which is, one of the reasons I'm a filmmaker, those films are really important to me, is this kind of approach to genre hybridity. So fusing two things together that don't really naturally go together, or maybe they do go together, and what you're exploring is that tension between two things. I think Greg Araki is a really great example of that, in the way he plays with sci-fi and drama, or sort of a teenage coming of age film with a little bit of sci-fi or monster or crime. And that was certainly something I really explored in my first film, a coming of age mixed with a thriller. And in this film, I think what we're playing with is it's incredibly grounded. The performances are grounded. It's very, very real in what the subject matters that we're dealing with, and in the performance style. But it's infused with these elements of, the thriller genre, the ghost genre, the gothic genre, the horror genre. All those things are peppered in to really bring what often you can't it is lurking beneath the surface of people and how it actually feels to them to bring that to the screen. So I think New Zealand has a really interesting history of that, especially in Christchurch. You know, the early films of Peter Jackson, for example, they're playing with so many different things, and that's what I always find the most exciting about filmmakers, especially in their first few films, and something that I really always try and capture.
And you know, you've got these two amazing actors. You've got Dacre and Vicky Creeps, and also Sarah Pearce, who I also wanted to mention because I thought she was
Yeah.
wonderful in the film as well. And the performances require such an intimacy, Dacre, between you and Vicky. What was the process of finding that kind of relationship between Jack and Jill? Was it a constant kind of dialogue, or did you kind of just sort of feel it out as you were working, or how did
I
you
think
find that intimacy?
most line to the latter of those two things. There was kind of an unspoken connection or bond between Vicky and I at the start of the production, where it was like we both knew we were bringing our own self, our own past, and our own trauma to the film. And because of that, we very rarely spoke outside of a scene or a blocking or a rehearsal for the entirety of the production because it wasn't necessary. You know what I mean? It would have taken something away for a lot of, and we're both very intense and we put all of ourselves into the role. And roles, plural in this example, in this case, I guess. But because of that, there was some brilliant freedom in not feeling like we have to mimic each other's version of Elizabeth.
Mm.
Because, like I said before, Tom, whether someone's agnostic or whatever about ghosts and the supernatural or not. Both Vicky and I were playing the same ghost in a way, but that ghost has different meanings to each of our different characters. And that was a really interesting sort of approach. Yeah.
And did you find it difficult to shift between the persona, the mindset of Jack, and the same for Elizabeth? Was there a process in that in
Yeah,
finding places?
definitely. But I think that idea, and not to labor on it, but that abuser living inside of you, it's a part of you the whole time. Like in Jack's case, there's a biological link to Elizabeth. So that idea of what was the maternal bond? How did that grow into his adulthood, even though he wasn't around her? You know, I have many experiences from my childhood that are a part of me and create who I am, even though I don't remember them, and have led to my anxiety or my fear of certain things in life. And I don't remember them. All I remember is a distinct feeling of unease. And that was really the shift between Jack and Elizabeth and back to Jack and so on. It's a feeling of unease. And I think that was really more the guiding kind of the wind in the sail, let's say, between the two and back and forth, the characters. It was just a feeling of unease.
It's interesting you mentioned that word because, you know, there's a lot of talk in New Zealand about the cinema of unease, this big movement in New Zealand about New Zealand Gothic storytelling, and that has always been the term used, cinema of unease. And I feel like this film very much fits into that. So it's interesting that you mentioned that word. Is that something that resonates for you as well, Samuel?
Yeah, I think like whenever you're approaching something that has, you know, elements of genre in it, or especially when you're playing with a ghost, you're always, from a directing standpoint, you are asking yourself, like, what is my version of fear that I'm trying to create? What is that palpable version, that feeling that I'm trying to create in a cinema? And for me, the word that always came to mind was unease and an unnerving quality. You know, it's not a film that's interested in jumping out and scaring you in that kind of way, or sort of on the surface fear, but you know, from the sound design to the visual approach to our performance style to all the different elements of it, it was about creating something that got under your skin and then felt uncomfortable and unnerving and uneasy. And that's where the fear comes from. And we see all the escalations in that across the film, but that's where I wanted you to sit. My hope was there was sort of a lean-in film in a lot of ways.
Definitely felt that feeling of being drawn into something. And I also feel like part of that comes from this incredible set, the house where most of the action is set. And Doug, you mentioned that it took a long time to find this location. How much of it is just there versus like design, build,
Mhm.
that kind of thing? Did it all just sort of arrive fully formed?
So the house is real. There's almost no set builds in the entire film.
Wow.
We gutted it.
Mm.
Um, so it's very designed. There's all, in terms of the production design, the furniture, the furnishings, the obviously the injection of costume into that, and all of the textural world that we built. But the physical place, it's entirely real. So. Um, yeah, those interior locations were really, we put a lot of work into finding a place that had the look we were going for, and had a real sense of character. The ghost character in our film designed this house. She was an architect in her life, and we wanted somewhere where you felt her on every surface, where you sort of felt her personality, and got insights into who she was, because as Vicky and Dacre both share her role, we never introduce the audience to who she was. You never see a photo. You never kind of get those insights. So yeah, we're really lucky to find something that's by a New Zealand architectural team, and their process was really making it feel like it sits in that landscape. It's one of the only buildings for miles, and that felt very true to what we were trying to do with the film as well.
Mm. Was there a sense of when you were entering that space, did it, I mean, I imagine it probably added to the kind of feeling that allowed you to achieve the tone of this film, which feels very managed and kind of carefully
Yes.
considered.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah, no, we looked at so many places. We originally thought we were going to shoot down in Queenstown, just sort of logically, like that's where a lot of these, very considered homes are built. And we ended up finding this, an hour and a half from where I was born. So it felt like it was meant to be. But I know the first time I walked in there, I knew instantly it was the right place. I had been looking at those exact textures, those exact materials, that exact kind of landscape. Weirdly, the geography of the house was really similar to how it was written in the film. Like this hallway that opens up onto a living room that goes around a corner to open up into a bedroom. Like it was so eerily similar to what we had written in the screenplay, which was pure imagination. But I think for me, the something that's always stands out to me looking back on shooting the film was my first time taking Dacre and Vicky to the house, which was probably 2 or 3 days out from shooting. I just wanted, to give them a chance to spend the night there if they wanted to, or to, make it theirs before all the crew kind of arrive. And they both had a very strong reaction to the house. It really came alive for them.
It's so, like you said, gothic and brutalist before, that considering how beautiful the home is. This is even before, because I went that night when you took us, it hadn't been fully dressed
No,
yet.
yeah.
The set, it's very cold.
Mm.
And the thing is, the house and the home is Elizabeth's creation, right? As is said in the film, and as is obvious in her vocation in
Yeah.
terms of being an architect. So because of that, it's very haunting. And to be there fully shooting on location and actually be isolated in the middle of nowhere is terrifying. I got straight in my car, drove down the hill, drove all the way back to Christchurch when Samuel showed me, because I couldn't be near it or around it. So even though it's an architectural masterpiece, it is in that way that brutalism can be without the right furnishings,
Mm.
light fixtures, cold.
Mm.
Cold, and the voices kind of don't even resound off the floor because there's a lot of wood soaking it up. So there's kind of nowhere even for it to bounce, but at the same time it feels hollow like a shell. And your brain and your sort of audio sense can't make sense of that sort of sound profile in the home, which in itself is unnerving. So because of that, I think the location is so crucial, especially in a movie like this, to achieve that feeling for the audience as well. It wouldn't have worked the same with a set build or a studio stage, whatever.
It was really interesting on the first day of shooting in the house. There was this, both Dacre and Vicky naturally fell into this almost whisper tone in delivering their dialogue to one another. And it was so interesting to witness from behind the monitor, because to me, I instantly went, oh, this is how people speak when they're in a church. And you do that because the architecture is designed, to kind of dwarf you, to make you feel small, to create the sense of like reverence, towards something. And the house was having that effect on the cast. And that spoke so much to this third character, this Elizabeth character, and what they were both dealing with in losing her. This sort of walking on eggshells or sort of tightrope that they were both going through, and we really ran with that across the film. There's this beautiful whisper, intimate quality across the entire film.
Oh, very much so. Yeah, no, it feels like it's a vessel for the kind of emotional goals that you're trying to achieve, I suppose. I am a huge fan of this film. I really, really loved it, and I really appreciate you guys taking the time to chat to me today.
Thanks.
All the best for your New Zealand premiere tonight, and for the rest of the rollout of the film.
Thank you
Thank you
so
very much, Tom.
See you
Appreciate
later.
it. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
This is a massive month for films coming out in cinemas. This is the beginning of kind of awards season, so a lot of the really hyped films that were playing in the big festivals, Venice and Toronto and the like, are now finally arriving on our screens as well. So let's dig into it. So right at the top of the month, we have a very, very promising film, one that's drawn a lot of attention, The Smashing Machine. Now, this stars Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. It's directed by Benny Safdie. Emily Blunt is in there as well. It is a profile of a UFC champion, and the performance by Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson is getting rave reviews across the board. Lots of Oscar buzz. So very excited for that one. Shelby Oaks is also dropping. Now, this is the first of a few different horrors that are dropping across Halloween. Shelby Oaks, there's not that much that's known about it. It's about someone searching for their missing sister who was a ghost hunter, as far as I know. It's got a bit of the campaign is kind of in the style of something like Longlegs. This kind of creepy teasers of what's to come. Whether the film actually pays that off is another question. I guess we will see. But everything is pointing towards something quite promising at the moment. The presence of Mike Flanagan as the producer, great Mike Flanagan, really, really great horror filmmaker himself, is always promising as well. Now, another horror film that's dropping is Him, which is a film that comes from Jordan Peele's Monkey Paw Productions. It's not directed by Jordan Peele. And it's kind of one of those social horrors that he's become known for, that his brand has kind of become known for. Whenever anyone else tries their hand at one of these social horrors and it's not Jordan Peele, I find like it's usually a bit of a lesser offering, which seems to be the case with Him. This is a story about American football and someone who is willing to do anything to become a great American football star. The reviews have been pretty savage. The box office has been pretty savage as well. Yeah, not sure if this one's going to be the most promising horror film that we get this month. We also have, in terms of horror, we also have The Black Phone 2. The original Black Phone came out a couple of years ago, starring Ethan Hawke. It was a mid-range kind of horror thriller in a kind of Stephen King vein. It wasn't bad. It wasn't amazing either. The Black Phone 2, the trailer is quite strong, quite promising. So it'll be interesting to see how that goes. And the returning cast, the best thing about the original Black Phone was the performances of the child actors, and they look to be coming back. So that's reason to have hope. Now, we've got a re-release of Avatar: The Way of Water. Now, obviously, Avatar 3 is dropping in December. So if you feel like you want to go and revisit the world of Pandora before Avatar 3, this one is showing in IMAX, I believe, which is always a great way to watch one of these Avatar films. We have Went Up the Hill. Obviously, we're talking to Samuel Van Grinsven and Dacre Montgomery today. Very, very cool little ghost story, really well acted, very, very powerful, really atmospheric New Zealand film. That one drops on the 9th of October. Well worth making the time, travelling to the theatre to see it, particularly because I think it it takes this kind of very scenic alpine New Zealand South Island landscape and does something different with it, which I think is really, really cool. And also Vicky Creeps is really great, as always, as well as Dacre Montgomery, who's probably best known for Stranger Things, doing something a little different here. Tron Eris. Now, why there's a third Tron sequel, I don't really know, because the last one, Tron Legacy, was hardly a box office success. But here we are with Tron. If you're a Tron fan, we are about to see this third offering. Now, this one is arriving on the back of some really bad press. Obviously, there have been allegations made against Jared Leto, who is the star of Tron Eris. So how they are navigating that is, I guess, to kind of try and remove him from trailers as much as possible, but he's the main character in this film, so how that goes is going to be interesting. The most exciting thing about it really is that as with the last installment, which had a Daft Punk soundtrack, this soundtrack is by Nine Inch Nails, so there's some new Trent Reznor songs in there, so that's probably the thing that's the most exciting. And honestly, the trailer looks fairly strong as well, so we will see whether it's worth the wait. Now, Eleanor the Great. This one is the directorial debut of Scarlett Johansson, and it arrived at Cannes earlier this year. It stars June Squibb, who is in her 90s, and she has had a very, very late career resurgence, where she's been starring in a bunch of different films. This one is a Holocaust drama. It's about someone discovering their roots as a Holocaust survivor, something like that. And the reviews have not been especially great. But June Squibb is such a wonderful actress. I think it's worth making the effort to check it out anyway, because she's in her 90s, so it's a great time to sort of celebrate this really great character actress getting her moment at this stage in her life. Now, A House of Dynamite. I'm personally really, really excited for this one. So this one comes to us from Catherine Bigelow. Her last film was Detroit in the mid-2010s. Obviously, she is most well known for something like Point Break, Zero Dark 30, The Hurt Locker, which she won the Oscar for. Really, really fantastic filmmaker. This one is, it's kind of like a modern update of a film called Failsafe, which is an excellent, excellent film. Basically, the premise of this film is that a nuclear missile is headed towards the United States. One nuclear missile. No one knows who's fired it. And it takes place basically in real time from a bunch of different perspectives, how people handle this impending disaster. Can they intercept the missile, or are they going to be facing an unprecedented event in the United States? Very, very intense looking. It's got a great cast, Rebecca Ferguson, Idris Elba, and a bunch of others. Any time that Catherine Bigelow emerges, because she doesn't make a huge amount of films, but anytime she emerges, it's worth checking out, I think. So very excited for that one. Got great reviews out of Venice. Ballad of a Small Player. Now, this one did not get great reviews. Actually, it got kind of trashed when it dropped at festivals this year. Now, this one comes to us from the director of Conclave, which was a very good film. It stars Colin Farrell, very good actor, who's having a bit of a bad run this year because he was also in A Big, Bold, Beautiful Journey, which for my money is one of the absolute worst films of the year. This film stars Farrell as a gambler, and he is kind of on a downward slope, and all of what that entails. The reviews have not been great for this one, but it's still coming to us from the director of Conclave. There's a bit of prestige around this one. Edward Berger is his name, and so fans of Conclave probably will want to see what he's up to next, whether or not he can live up to the hype. You never know. These festivals, sometimes the reviews that come out of festivals are not always the most accurate, so we will see how that goes. Now, Twinless. This is a really, really great comedy. I saw this one at Whanau Marama New Zealand International Film Festival. This is a film about these two twins who have both lost their twins, who are going to a grieving support group for twins who have lost their sibling, and they kind of start to kind of fall together into a kind of obsession, friendship. Maybe there's like a kind of a sexual undertone there, but the thing is that there's an excellent twist in this film, which I will not give away, but it's what you think you're watching right at the beginning of the film is not what the film becomes, and along the way it's very funny but also quite unsettling, and it has a great cast. I particularly was really taken by Aisling Franciosi, who was so great in The Nightingale, here delivering a really fantastic performance, and Dylan O'Brien is also fantastic in this film, so highly recommend that. Really strong comedy. Roofman comes to us from Derek Cianfrance. He is the director of Blue Valentine, Place Beyond the Pines. This one stars Channing Tatum, and it's based on a true story about a guy who who was a robber, a thief, and he after a heist he hid in the ceiling of a Toys R Us for 6 months before he was caught, and along the way he kind of fell into a relationship with someone who worked there, and it looks like a lot of fun. The trailer was really strong. Channing Tatum, it's always great to see him back in the lead role. He's a really fantastic actor. He always brings something new to the table, and Cianfrance, he has a bit of a kind of spotty career. He has some really great stuff and some stuff that didn't quite live up to the hype, but he's always, you can always rely on him to do something interesting. So we will see how Roofman goes. Regretting You, I don't know much about this film, other than it comes to us from the makers of It Ends With Us. Looks like a kind of similar kind of romantic drama. Dave Franco's in it, and listen, if you liked It Ends With Us, it looks very much in the same vein. So that one is for people who are looking for something a little bit more romantic for their Halloween. Springsteen, Deliver Me From Nowhere. Now, okay, I'm a huge Bruce Springsteen fan. I'm New Zealand's biggest Springsteen fan. I think I can confidently say that. And so I am very skeptical about this film. Jeremy Allen White is playing Bruce, and he is getting lots of Oscar buzz for it. The film, not so much. Respectful reviews, but not kind of glowing. And I feel very protective of Bruce, so I'm coming into this with a very skeptical view, but I'm trying to maintain my kind of critical neutrality until I watch it. But from what I've seen in the trailers, I mean, the thing is that it seems to me like a lot of these kind of musician biopics that have dropped over the years, like Bohemian Rhapsody and all the rest of them, the Bob Dylan one from last year, this idea of impersonation rather than actually inhabiting the person, which I think is a really important distinction. You can have a perfect impersonation of someone's voice or how they kind of look and walk, but are you actually conveying them as a person? And I don't know, the trailer didn't necessarily suggest that for me. So we will see. If they can get it past me, then they can get it past anyone. So Springsteen, Deliver Me From Nowhere, that's later this month. Now, Pike River is one of the most anticipated New Zealand films of the year. It is a massive New Zealand film. There's a lot of eyes on this film. Obviously, it's about the Pike River mining disaster and the kind of fight for justice afterwards. Stars Melanie Linsky and Robin Malcolm, two New Zealand royalty in terms of our performers. It's directed by Rob Sarkis. He is a really great filmmaker. He directed one of the best New Zealand films of all time, Out of the Blue. So there's great kind of prestige going into this work, and it will be very interesting to see how it kind of channels this disaster and the kind of mismanagement of the crisis afterwards. So we also will be chatting to the team behind Pike River very soon, so stay tuned for that. Now, lastly, right at the end of the month, we have Bugonia, which is Yorgos Lanthimos' new film, starring Emma Stone and Jesse Plemons, two very good actors. Now, this one's interesting. It's actually adapted from a film that came out in 2005, I think, called Save the Green Planet, and it's about a pair of kind of conspiracy theorists who believe that this high-powered CEO, played by Emma Stone, is an alien from another planet. They kidnap her, trying to get her to kind of confess to being an alien, and hijinks ensue. The reviews for this have been respectful, fairly strong, but I think a lot of the praise has been particularly for Jesse Plemons, who I think is kind of ascendant at the moment. Fantastic actor. I'm very, very excited to see what he does next, and I'm excited to see his performance in this because Yorgos always brings something interesting out of him. So that's my main kind of interest in this film. Yorgos has never been my guy. I have always respected the films that he's made, but he's never been like at the very top for me. That said, I think I might be in the minority with that one. A lot of people love Yorgos. Weirdly, actually, Kinds of Kindness, which came out last year, a lot of people didn't like, and that was one that I liked more than some of his other stuff. So anyway, Begonia at the end of the month. Over to streaming, and a lot of films that dropped again at film festivals in the recent months are arriving here, ones that maybe don't have as much buzz behind them, or distributors don't necessarily think they have the legs to go into cinemas here, but there's still some reason to be interested, to have hope for some of these films. Now, to start, actually, we've got a series that's dropping on Disney+. Glenn Powell stars as Chad Powers. I don't know much about this one except that it's football kind of comedy. He's playing a dual role, kind of like a Hannah Montana kind of deal. Glenn Powell, though, I think is a very, very charming actor. He's kind of ascendant as he's been kind of christened as this kind of new Tom Cruise. So it's interesting to see him doing a TV series at this juncture in his career, actually. We're actually seeing him in The Running Man later this year, the remake of The Running Man, which Edgar Wright is directing. So you will see him on your screens very soon. But so that one is dropping right at the top of the month. Chad Powers. Play Dirty stars Mark Wahlberg and Lakeith Stanfield. Now, this one looks like a fairly, at first sight, looks like a fairly by-the-numbers kind of action movie, but it is directed by Shane Black, who's a really... he's got a real cult following. Director of Kiss Kiss Bang Bang, Lethal Weapon, The Nice Guys. So this, if you know those kinds of films, you know that these are kind of meaty action films with a very kind of sarcastic, kind of laconic atmosphere, usually with some great actors involved. He's never really caught on in the way that some other action filmmakers have, like Michael Bay or Christopher Nolan, but it's always worth watching a Shane Black film just to see what he kind of pulls out of the bag. Now, the Lost Bus comes to us from Paul Greengrass. Paul Greengrass, director of United 93, as well as the Bourne trilogy. He is a really, really interesting director. You know, for a period of time, his style kind of informed the style of action films, you know, during the Bourne era. You know, his kind of shaky cam digital style was really en vogue, and he is still making a lot of he's still working in that style. His recent kind of output has been focusing on true events that he's kind of documented in the vein of something like United 93. This is the case with The Lost Bus, which is set during a massive wildfire, and it's about it stars Matthew McConaughey as a guy trying to kind of get a school bus out of the midst of this giant wildfire, and America Ferrera's in there as well. I'm secretly confident about this one. I think it sounds like a very intense, very stressful kind of premise, and it's based on a true story. It's nice to see McConaughey back on our screens. He's taken a bit of a break, it's nice to see Greengrass back as well. So hopefully this is a bit of a return to form. Steve is a film that is mostly notable for having Cillian Murphy in it, Oscar winner Cillian Murphy. It's his second film since Oppenheimer. The other one that he did was Small Things Like These. It's kind of like a high school drama, like a kind of British realist high school drama. The thing that annoys me about this film is that it's called Steve. What's going on with this title? There's nothing that makes me want to watch a film called Steve. That's a truly terrible title. Only the worst title of the year is A Big, Bold, Beautiful Journey, and I think Steve is the next level down. But I'm not going to let that stop me from watching, because I do love Cillian Murphy. So we will check that one out and see how that goes. Now, Monster, the Ed Gein story. This one is Ryan Murphy's latest series about serial killers. You know, he did the one about the Menendez brothers and etc. etc. Ed Gein is known as the inspiration for the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. You know, the guy who, you know, he did some pretty nasty stuff. This one stars Charlie Hunnam, which is interesting because I've always thought he's a really great actor who hasn't really gotten his time in the sun. Lost City of Z, one of the great films of the 2010s. His performance in that is fantastic. This is also notable for having Addison Rae in it. So, you know, it looks very much in the vein of Ryan Murphy, which is this kind of slightly trashy approach, which has some interesting kind of artistic value to it, which is kind of hard to define. And, you know, is it a commentary on our obsession with serial killers, or is it actually just playing into that? The viewer will have to decide that for themselves. John Candy, I Like Me. This is a documentary about the great John Candy. We love John Candy. You would recognize him from, you know, Planes, Trains, Automobiles and Home Alone and the like. This kind of very friendly, boisterous, big presence in 80s and early 90s films, Hollywood films. He had a very, very interesting life story. He died way too young, and he's beloved by a lot of people. And I think a lot of the interviews in the film from people, you know, like Steve Martin and the like, whose lives were changed by coming into contact with him. So John Candy fans, or people who are just looking to introduce themselves to one of the great kind of Hollywood comedians of that era, should keep an eye out for John Candy, I Like Me. Now, the last one I've got here is Hedda. This one is a kind of costume romance starring Tessa Thompson, who's a great actress. This one's also directed by Nia DaCosta, who is next going to be helming the sequel to 28 Years Later, which is called The Bone Temple. So all eyes are on her at the moment. She's coming off the back of a bit of a disastrous flop for Marvel. She directed The Marvels, which was not a great film, but sounds like it was kind of taken out of her hands a little bit and undercut. But she's a very talented filmmaker, so it'll be interesting to see if this is a bit of a return to form for her, working with Tessa Thompson, who she's worked with before, who's a great actress. From Tuesday 21st of October at 8:30 p.m, Rialto Channel is bringing you the exclusive premiere of the series Families Like Ours. This is a Danish series from the great Thomas Vinterberg. I am a huge Thomas Vinterberg fan. When I was in film school, I watched one of his films, the Danish filmmaker from the Dogma 95 era. Made a film called Festen, or The Celebration, which is an incredible, incredible film. One of the great films of the 90s. Since then, he's gone from strength to strength. He made a great Far From the Madding Crowd adaptation. The Hunt is an incredible film with Mads Mikkelsen. He reunited with Mads Mikkelsen for another round, which caused a huge buzz and was really, really well received. Really wonderful film. This is his new series. So he's doing a series. This one looks to have kind of dystopian feel to it. It is about a group of people dealing with Denmark being evacuated because of rising sea levels. So there's a kind of climate change element to it. Anything from Vinterberg, I think, is well worth your time. It's very, very exciting to have this drop here. It has been critically acclaimed, and we're very, very excited to host it on Rialto Channel. So tune in 21st of October, 8:30 p.m, and every Tuesday from then on. Very special opportunity coming up for you guys. We've got a little giveaway for an Auckland screening, the first 2 episodes of Families Like Ours, the very, very exciting Danish series from the great Thomas Vinterberg, arriving on Rialto Channel. So the screening is on Sunday, 12th of October, 11 a.m, first 2 episodes of the series. You can win double passes to go to this exclusive screening. Jump on over to viewmag.co.nz to enter, and I will probably be seeing you there, to be honest, because I'm very, very excited for this series. Love Vinterberg. So that is all the time we have for you today. Thank you so much for being with us. Stay tuned. Next episode, we are going to be talking to the team behind Pike River, probably the most anticipated New Zealand film of the year. Very, very exciting stuff. I'm going to be sitting down for Rob Sarkis to have a chat. So tune in then. Thank you so much for being with us again. Ka kite.